Good evening, everyone. My name is Angela Hollander, and I'm the Senior Scholarship Program Associate at the Community Foundation, San Luis Obispo County. This evening, I hope to answer the question, can I afford college, by addressing the I in the next sentence. The I is, can the student who's worked hard and wants to attend their dream school with a $72,000 price tag, or the parent who's wondering how they can afford to send their child to college and still save for their retirement. So let's get a quick review of what we will talk about this morning as we walk through the presentation. These are the questions that we will hope to answer this evening. How much does college cost, and what is included in the total cost? What is the difference between grants, scholarships, loans, and work study? How does a student receive financial aid? So let's pause for a moment and review that. What does it cost to go to college? It might surprise you to know that there are 4,500 degree-granting Title I institutions in the United States. Among these, 3,000 are four-year schools. 1,500 are two-year schools, or what we call in California, community colleges. But let's back up for a moment. What is a Title IV school? Good question. A Title IV school is an institution that processes United States federal student aid. So it's important when you're shopping for a college that you refer to as your dream school to know if they offer financial aid from the feds. And you have to have demonstrated financial need in order to get student loans, grants, or work study. And then you can lead successfully to a bachelor's degree or a two-year associate's degree. Now we're ready to go a little bit deeper and compare and contrast. Learning in one place items about tuition, retention, and graduation rates can have a huge impact on the cost of college, as do the number of classes or units of study that you take each term. We'll hold on to that topic and we'll go back to it in a few moments. The best tip that I'm going to give you this evening is to head over to the best kept secret in the college application process. And it's called the National Center for Educational Statistics, or the College Navigator. It is here on the College Navigator website that you can look at the tuition fees and costs of in-state versus out-of-state colleges, on-campus versus off-campus with family costs, retention rate. What percentage of those first-time students return to the same school in year two? And what is the graduation rate of that college that you're looking at? How quickly does a student earn their bachelor's degree in 4 years, or 5 years, or 6 years? This is the information that'll help you make an informed decision. And you can see the website down here on the slide. Cost of attendance. So my first piece of advice is don't let the price tag scare you. What appears to be unaffordable could be a lot less costly than you think. And by doing the comparison shopping and looking at the college choices and comparing and contrasting the data, you can start to make your list. So net price. Net price is the amount a student pays to attend an institution after subtracting grants, scholarships, work study, and student loans. Focus on net price, not the sticker price. Now you might say, well, how do I learn what the net price is? Good question. The most important day for seniors just passed. It was October 1st. Don't panic, it's not too late. It was just the first day that you complete your free application for federal student aid or your California Dream Act application or your CSS profile. Let's begin with the federal student aid. You can go to the studentaid.gov website and begin completing the FAFSA. This is your first step to securing federal aid for college, career, or graduate school. It's also your first step for getting a Cal Grant. Here in California, you're very fortunate because the state offers grants to students whether they attend a community college, a four-year public or private college. Then there's the CSS Profile. This is created on the College Board website. Some students will have to complete this form in addition to their federal student aid application because almost 400 colleges and universities, in addition to requiring the FAFSA, require the CSS. And you will see that in their application when you're making the application to that school. It was also available on October 1st. And you use your College Board account, which might have been the account that you used to register for an SAT. And that's where you'll complete your financial aid profile. And as I just said, it may be required by some colleges and universities. Generally speaking, private colleges and out-of-state colleges and public universities out of state do require the CSS profile. So now let's talk about steps that'll help to minimize your student debt. The majority of students use loans to finance their college education. But please remember, don't borrow money unless you absolutely have to. All right, you won't know if you're going to have to until next year when you start receiving your financial aid awards along with your acceptances. But it's still something important to think about going forward. So how much will it cost? Well, the billable costs are tuition and fees, on-campus room and board, and these costs will show up on a college bill. Indirect costs will be books and supplies, off-campus room and board, personal expenses, travel costs, and these don't show up on your college bill, but they are things you need to think about going forward. So assessing student need. A student's financial need is calculated as the difference between what's the cost of attending school minus any expected financial assistance, such as gifts or outside scholarships, and the amount the student and their family is expected to pay. When you complete your FAFSA, there's going to be a number, and it's called the expected family contribution. It's non-negotiable. Well, kind of, sort of, but we'll get to that later as well. So if the cost of attending, for example, a Cal State University is $28,000, and your family's estimated family contribution is $20,000, you have a gap in the cost of attendance, so you may qualify for financial aid. But not all aid is aid that you don't have to repay. Keep that in mind. Factors that influence a family's contribution are the assets that a parent has from income, the amount a student can contribute. So if you've been saving in the summertime, they may expect you to pay towards your college attendance with those savings. They also look at the family size and the age of your oldest parent and how many children are currently attending school. There are special circumstances, health-related expenses, loss of property, or the death of a family. And unfortunately, in California this year with all the fires, we have had a lot of loss of property. So here are the types of financial aid, and we're going to go through these one at a time. Grants come in the form of federal Pell Grants. There's something called the FSEOG, which is for very, very low income students. There are Cal Grants, and then there's institutional grants. I'm going to give you a few examples. A full Pell Grant in the country right now is $6,345. The state's Cal Grant programs, you could get as much as $12,570 towards the full cost of attending at a UC campus, $5,700 at a CSU, and possibly $9,000 if you attend a private college in the state of California. There's also things called the Blue and Gold Opportunity Plan, and there's middle class scholarship, which the legislature enacted in 2013 to help families. And I've seen the annual incomes of families go from as much as $150,000 up to $184,000, so that you can still get some kind of help if you're a middle income person with fees to cover your room, board, books, supplies, and other educational expenses. The next piece of the circle are scholarships. You could see athletic scholarships, academic, leadership, theater, music. They're generally competitive. Sometimes they're institutional, which means they're being offered to you by the college. Sometimes they're national scholarships, and sometimes they're just state, local, and civic. I would encourage everyone to watch the 6:30 presentation on how to apply for the Community Foundation scholarships that'll follow me at 6:30. Next, we have work study, and this is based on demonstrated need. The student's provided a non-campus job. You're expected to work 10 to 15 hours a week. And generally speaking, the average offer of aid can be about $1,800, but I have seen some institutions offer as much as $4,000 to students. Loans. A loan is based on financial need for which the federal government generally pays interest that accrues while the borrower is in school, and then you might have grace or deferment statuses. If you're eligible to borrow a subsidized loan, you can borrow up to 150% of what the program might cost. But as I said again, don't borrow unless you have to. Now, the unsubsidized loan is one that a student has to begin paying interest within 6 months of enrolling. So you'll know based on the financial aid award letters that you receive whether you're offered a subsidized or an unsubsidized loan. But the good news is, because the interest rates are at historically low levels, undergraduates can borrow at 2.75% and your parents can borrow at 5%. So if you're in a pinch, you know, you might have to take out a small loan, but a 2.75% interest rate is a pretty good rate to borrow. So now it's February or March or April. Definitely everybody will find out by the beginning of April whether or not they've been accepted at all the different schools that they've applied to. But now comes the talk. Who's going to pay for college? And parents say that it's not their responsibility. 42% of them do. And 69% of the kids say, but it's your responsibility. So there's a little tug of war going on there. What's important to understand is, irregardless of whether mom and dad say, I'm not paying for you to go to college, the federal government says that until the age of 24, the colleges are going to look at what the parents can afford to pay, and that will impact the offers of aid. So it's something important for mom and child to sit down, or excuse me, parent and child to sit down and talk about before those letters come in. And maybe mom and dad or your parents or significant others or guardians want you to say, what are you willing to chip in? But I will tell you that the average student debt in the United States right now is $32,000. And nationally, the student loan debt as of this week was $1.56 trillion. That's a lot of burden. So that's why it's important to have the talk. Whoops. and this is where the talk begins. This is what's referred to as a federal shopping sheet. Now, not all colleges and universities use the same form. It would be great if they did. So today I'm going to give you an example of what some will look like. Generally speaking, the University of California and CSUs do use this. They'll tell you the full estimated cost of attendance for student enrollment. Then they'll list the grants and from the school, from the feds, from your state, and any other scholarships that the institution is offering you. And then it'll say, here's what the net cost is. If you remember earlier, we were talking about net cost. So you will see that there's loan options. So your financial aid package is going to be a combination of how much your parents can afford to pay, how much they're willing to loan you or your parents to pay for school, if you're being offered work study, and what the school is personally going to put into it. So the next example, this is a financial aid offer from the University of Southern California. Similar, a little bit different, but basically the same. They're talking about gift aid, but just remember, gift aid includes loans. Don't take that for granted. Think, oh, I'm getting offered a loan. You still have to pay it back. Work study, you don't have to pay back. Scholarships and grants, free money, you don't have to pay it back. But then you're going to see what's the remaining cost. And very often the remaining cost is either going to be because your parents can afford $7,000, or if you're really low income, it may be that they're expecting your family to chip in nothing. I'm going to go through a couple of financial aid packages here for you. So this package A is a student. Their family's estimated family contribution to attend UCLA is $0. They're not expecting the student's family to pay anything. They're giving them a full Pell Grant. This was last year. Full Pell Grant for that year. There's some university aid. Generally, the UCs will pay for the health insurance for a student. And then there's some offer of work study. So you're going to see the need is still $9,300, and they're offering university loans, federal loans, both subsidized and unsubsidized. And the bottom line is the cost of attendance is completely filled by all those different forms of financial aid. That's UCLA. Now here's a student that was accepted at the University of Pennsylvania. The University of Pennsylvania is what you call a no loans guaranteed. So if your family's estimated family contribution is $0, they're going to make sure that the entire pie is filled. So they're giving this student a full Pell Grant of $65,000. Penn Grant. They're giving them a full Pell Grant, and then they're also giving them an opportunity grant and then offering some work study. Here's where scholarships can come into play. If a student receives a $3,500 scholarship from a local service organization or the community foundation, then you don't have to do the work study. But what's important to understand is if you go out and get $10,000 worth of scholarships and you have a package like this offered to you, you're going to see award displacement. And what that means is the University of Pennsylvania is going to reduce their offer of assistance commensurate with the amount of scholarships that you've received, with the exception of the federal work study. They'll take the federal work study away and allow you to use your scholarships. But if any more than that, if you say, for example, you receive $10,000 in outside scholarships, you'll only be able to use about $6,500. Next, we have package C. This is a family. Student was attending Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Cost $71,000. The family's contribution was estimated to be $7,200. Students saved in the summertime. So they're looking at that student and parent and saying, okay, you have to pay $9,200 because the parent, we figured you can afford $7,000. Student, you've saved for the summertime. We're going to have you have some skin in the game. And then they have the MIT scholarship, the SEOG, the federal work study, and the Pell Grant. If that student receives in excess of outside scholarships, they will reduce the MIT scholarship. You cannot use scholarships to pay for the parent contribution or the student contribution. Package D again, this is University of California, Santa Cruz. Total cost is $3,600. The student received a partial Pell, excuse me. They received some university aid. They also received a Cal Grant. They're getting some work study, and then they're offering them 2 loans, $6,500. So the need there is $9,500. If the student gets outside scholarships, they don't have to do the work study. They won't have to do the student loan, either student loan. And what's important to understand is you might say, well, it's not fair. They're taking away the work study and I earned the scholarship. But you have to remember there's a lot of students that aren't getting scholarships. So the universities are trying to help as many students as possible. So if you've got an outside scholarship that meets that $9,500 worth of need, it's kind of a wash, but still just remember you won't have to take on those student loans. And I've got 2 examples here. This is what I refer to as package E1. This is a student attending UCLA. This is a student whose estimated family contribution is $4,500. So pretty much they're expecting this family to pay for the full cost of attendance. They will offer the parents a loan if they would rather take out a loan at a 4%, or I guess I said 5% interest. They can do that, and the student can take out a loan too. And some parents will say, I want you to take in on a loan just because I want you to feel that there's some skin in the game. I want you to sense that you're paying for your education as well. And so this is definitely high middle income family. So this is where a student is not receiving any Cal Grant, they're not receiving any state or federal aid, so that student can use outside scholarships to help pay for that cost of attendance. And here is another one. This is a student who's attending Seattle University. Their estimated family contribution, again, this is a higher middle income family. They expected the family to pay $45,000. But this student was given an athletic scholarship of $15,000, was a really strong student. They received a trustee scholarship from Seattle University for $25,000. They received $7,700 in outside scholarships, one of which was from the Community Foundation. So their total merit aid was $48,000, and so they're only paying $15,000. This same family, if you look at the previous slide, going to a University of California, UCLA, would have had to have paid the full cost, $34,000. But instead, this student chose to go to Seattle University, and their cost of attendance was half of what it would have been, even though they're an in-state resident. So this is why the shopping is so important. And sit down and lay out all these financial aid letters and have a really good conversation. Yes, UCLA is a great school, but you can always go there to graduate school, save a little bit of money. So the advice from a college dropout named Bill Gates was, college graduates are more likely to find a rewarding job, earn higher income, and even evidence shows live healthier lives even if they didn't have degrees. They also begin training and skills in America's workforce, helping our economy to grow and stay competitive. Not everyone is meant to go to college, but if you do, don't take on too much debt because you will have to pay it back at some time. So I'm looking here, and we have a couple of questions that I can answer. So Wesley asked, is that for one semester or a whole year? Wesley, I'm not sure if you could type in what that question was referring to. And Trish asks, are these examples from lower, middle, and higher income families? Yes, they are. That's why we had the EFC of 0, 7,000, and 45,000 for an estimated family contribution. The AGI income cutoff for middle class scholarships, this year it went up to $180,000, Jill. The question from Trish, gross or net? If I look at the Cal State University website, they're just saying total family income. So I would imagine that's what your parents are putting on their income tax return. Okay. Do we have any other questions? Wesley, I don't know if Wesley is still on the session. You were asking a question, is that for one semester or for a whole year? So if you could type in the question, I can answer it. If anybody has a question, I have 3 minutes left to answer. Okay, if you have any questions, how is home equity valued into EFC? Okay, Jill, home equity is not considered. That is not a factor in the FOFSA. Somebody wants to ask a question privately. Up here on the screen, you can see my email address. I'd be more than happy to take that question from Jonathan. You can email me at angela@cfsloco.org, and I'd be more than happy to answer that question. If anyone is concerned about whether or not they're eligible for aid because they're a dreamer in the state of California, you may not get a Pell Grant, a federal Pell Grant, but the state of California has what's called the California Dream Act Pell Grant, so you can get the same amount of money that you might have received from the federal government, but you would have to attend a school in California. Right. Well, I'm seeing that we're almost at an end. I really want to thank everyone for joining me this evening. I hope that you receive some valuable information. And as I said, when those letters of acceptances roll in, so will your financial aid award summaries. Sit down with your family, have a good conversation, whether it's your guardian, your older brother or sister, your parents. Just look at it and recognize that you don't want to take on too much debt, and do comparisons. And you also, with the pandemic, a lot of schools are into negotiating. With the pandemic, some families have lost jobs. So even though the estimated family contribution, because it's based on the prior year's income, that income may have changed, and you may be able to have a case with the financial aid department at the school that you want to go to advocate for yourself. All right. And this will be playing later on. I believe it'll be up on the website in 2 days. Thank you all.